All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode number 2 of the Insiders podcast. The Insiders is a new weekly podcast featuring some of the most prominent figures in South Carolina politics. Each week, we're going to talk about that week in politics and get insights and analysis from the Arena contributors. I'm Tyler Jones, publisher of The Arena. The Arena is South Carolina's only progressive media company. We offer commentary, podcasts, interviews, reporting, and a whole host of content about South Carolina politics. If you haven't already, please go to thearenasc.substack.com and subscribe. And please consider becoming a paid subscriber, which includes full access to all of our content for just $10 a month. All right, now that that's out of the way, let me introduce our contributors today. Annie Andrews is somewhere in the Atlantic on a Disney cruise, so we're going to miss her today, but we have the rest of our contributors, Representative Jermaine Johnson, Emily Mayer, Melissa Watson-Ward, and we have a very special guest for this episode, the recently crowned Democratic nominee for the South Carolina 1st Congressional District, Mr. Michael B. Moore. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here with y'all.
Thank you for being here. Today is Thursday, June 20th. We're just a few days away from the South Carolina primary runoffs. We are 1 week away from the all-important first presidential debate. But first, we want to bring in our special guest and talk to him about, I think we can all say probably the most important congressional race in 2024 in South Carolina. First, welcome and congratulations on your win, Michael.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I jumped in the race 15, 16 months ago, and even the primary was always this sort of nebulous date in the future. Well, it's past us now, and we are squarely heading toward November 5th, so I'm feeling good.
Well, I know you've had to answer this question a million times, and now that you're in the general, you're going to answer it a lot more. But for those who don't know who you are, tell folks about yourself, your background, and why you decided to throw your hat in the ring for Congress 15, 16 months ago.
Yeah, I sort of start talking about my family background in the sense that, my family, we've been able to trace, got here to the Low Country back in the early to mid 1790s. We've had family here ever since. I feel a real connection to South Carolina and to the Low Country. My background's in business. I got an undergraduate degree in political science from Syracuse University, got an MBA from Duke University, started my business career at Kraft. I was a brand associate on sugar-free Jell-O gelatin way back in the day, and back when Cosby was pure and pure and all that. Then went to Coca-Cola, was a brand manager on a Coca-Cola business there for a number of years, and then I started working at smaller companies toward the end of the 90s. I was president of a software company that created, really one of the pioneers in creating social media software. Then went and was CEO of a company called Glory Foods that at the time was based in Columbus, Ohio. And then we moved it to South Carolina around the time when we were about to sell Glory Foods. I had been on the board of former Charleston Mayor Joe Riley's capstone project in the International African American Museum. I was on the board, and then he asked me, told him about us selling and moving away from Glory Foods. He said, well, hey, I've been working on this project for 15 years at the time. Can you come and lend some executive experience to help us get across the fundraising line and help to hire the staff and manage the curatorial experience? And so, I've got a deep connection to the history of the Low Country and to Charleston and to African American history. So I, jumped at the opportunity and became the founding president and CEO of the International African American Museum, which opened almost a year ago. So, why I'm running is deeply connected to family, both here, kids and a granddaughter, but also those shoulders of my ancestors that I stand on. I've grown up knowing about my great-great-grandfather, Robert Smalls, who was just really briefly was, enslaved person, Charleston Harbor, commandeered a Confederate ship, sailed it to freedom with 15 others, had a lot of really wonderful sort of history in the Civil War. But after the war, was first in 1868 elected to the General Assembly, served in both the House and the Senate sides, actually wrote the legislation to create a public school system in South Carolina.
Wow.
Before going to Washington and serving 5 terms there. I'm actually running for the same seat in Washington that he would be serving in if he were in office now. And so that adds a real, just an important sort of family frame to this opportunity. But for me, Robert wasn't the only source of inspiration. When I'm elected, I'll be the 4th in the last 5 generations of people in my family from South Carolina to serve in elected office. So I have all these examples of people who just understood the power, the nobility, frankly, of investing in your communities and your neighbors, trying to make the world a better place through elected office. When I juxtapose that with just looking at really the world that my kids and my granddaughter are coming into. I've got 4 sons from 18 to 26, and it just feels like the world is more troubled and more complicated for them than it even was for me. I grew up on the tail end of the civil rights movement, and even though we were still wrestling with a lot of those social issues, there was this overall sense of optimism about the world. There was almost this promise that each generation would do better than the last, that kids would outperform their parents almost automatically. And I'm not sure that we can be so just automatically optimistic now. And so, wanting to do better for my kids and their generations, and being so connected to this legacy of people in my family who served, when I actually kind of finally realized that I had an opportunity to run for the seat that that Robert Small served in, it all just kind of came together for me.
So this is the first time I think I can remember that the first congressional district had a competitive Democratic primary. I may be forgetting one along the line, but just talk about the last year of this primary. Obviously, you were successful. You were victorious over Mac DeFore, but it was a fairly close primary. Talk about the last year, what you learned on the primary, and why you think you ultimately prevailed.
Yeah, I mean, I've learned everything I know about sort of politics beyond watching TV and reading newspapers. I've learned in this experience. I didn't know, anything, and so I've learned sort of the guts of kind of campaigning. I've learned, you can know intellectually about how important fundraising is, but until you get in and roll up your sleeves and start doing
Yep.
hours and hours of call time, you really don't understand what that looks like. We traveled all around the district and talked to folks. We had starting in maybe April, we started a 50 events in 50 days, kind of barnstorming tour of the district, and just talked to folks from St. Matthews down to the Fusty and all in between. And that, that was a heartening experience. I enjoy connecting with people. I think for me, the best part of this experience has been the people who I've had an opportunity to meet. Although it has also been, it has been humbling to really, at a granular level, get a sense for the fact that so many people are still really struggling out there. They need to have a government that works and that works for them, not just the 1%. And so understanding all that sort of is made up into that sort of fact. And look, I think it it was a long kind of a race. Mac's a great guy. He was a great candidate. And, I think maybe our ground game toward the end was what sort of pushed us over. We're still in the process of kind of doing a postmortem and trying to figure out what we did well and what we didn't do well. But fundamentally, I believe that that field, really solid field organization is going to be really meaningful for us, going out and connecting with people. And so I think beginning to build a template for that was important. And ultimately, I think that's probably what allowed us to prevail.
So I am so excited that I will get to cast my vote for you in November in the 1st congressional district. So first, thank you for running, because I know that it's very difficult. So I want to give you a credit where credit is due. We know that we have a voter turnout issue across South Carolina, but specifically in the 1st district, and having really the only potentially competitive seat in the state, you would expect or hope that turnout would be better than it is, but it's still not. So what are your thoughts on how to reach the folks who just feel disenfranchised from the process, and that it's not worth spending the time to get engaged going out to cast their vote for you?
Yeah, I think two issues. First, I think articulate an agenda, a vision, where there's a real what's in it for me, for all of our voters, in particular the different subgroups of our voters within the Democrat Party, and then also independents and moderate Republicans. There's got to be something in it for them. I am aware of some statistics that the sort of voters of color is a pretty meaningful size in our district. And, it's going to be important for us to inspire them, to give them a sense that they've got something to go to the polls for. And so, we've been working on that. I've been spending time in the settlement communities, time talking to LGBT folks, on top of obviously everything else that we're doing. But we think that's going to be important. We think women are going to be obviously really important. The issue of women's reproductive freedom is just so critical to politics all around the country. And I think we've got a real opportunity in going up against, Nancy on that issue, where, she was the co-sponsor of the 6-week abortion ban. She co-sponsor of a bill that would outlaw IVF, and certainly made it harder for women in the military to access reproductive care. So I think we've got an opportunity there. And, I was so heartened back a couple of months ago, almost organically, a group of women created a Women for More group, and over 100 came together to just support us and all that we are doing to support them. And so that was great. We think young people are going to be really important. They say that Gen Z is going to be the most politically active cohort of them all. And we got a group of campaign fellows that are out connecting with young people, talking to them on platforms where they are about issues that are important to them, and connecting them to the campaign. And then look, I think independents are going to be really important, and even moderate Republicans. I suspect that when Nikki Haley beat Donald Trump, it proved that there was an even larger group of moderate Republicans who are just rejecting all things MAGA. And certainly Nancy has done her best to align herself with that wing of her party. And so, traditionally those moderate Republicans are business folks, or folks motivated by business concerns. And, I'm a business guy. So, I've had good luck connecting, with folks like that, people who have, reached out and said, I've been a lifelong Republican. I just can't do it anymore. And so we're going to, support you. So, it's going to be just on top of all of the traditional kinds of tools. We're going to have to do TV. We're going to have to do radio. We're going to have to do direct mail, digital market, all those things. We just think it's going to be really important. The second point that I was going to make is what I said before about having a really robust ground game. We've already started. We of course have been canvassing and phone banking, but one of the things that distinguished both Obama campaigns was their field organization, and we hired someone who ran that for those campaigns. So we're feeling good about just our ability to create this almost network platform of people all throughout the district who are, going out and getting more volunteers and organizing them in ways that will get the word out. But it's going to be hard work. Now, we can win this race if we can turn out the vote. And so I think that's our challenge.
Right. Melissa?
Yeah, Michael, again, as Emily said, thank you for running. We know that it's a big sacrifice to run and it's hard to run. And typically, my focus is on getting women elected to office, but we know that all women candidates are not created equal, and they are not always good for women. And so, as you kind of alluded, that Nancy Mace has not been good on women's issues, how are you going to motivate, whether that's moderate Republican women or the base of Black women, what issues besides just reproductive rights are you going to address to really be able to get those moderate Republican women and the base of Black women out to vote for you?
Yeah, great question. First, I will say, without dismissing it, I do think that, sort of full-throated support for women's reproductive freedom is at the core of this challenge. Because I think, you know, I guess we saw there are 115,000 left-leaning women in the district, the vast majority of whom are totally pissed off about losing out of the economy the freedom to make their own healthcare decisions. And so I think being really clear and strong in support for that is going to be, super important. But, we go beyond that. I mean, I support the equal rights of them and I support pay equity. This is 2024. And it is just unconscionable to me that a man and a woman can do the exact same job, have the exact same performance, and just because the man is a man, he will make, more. And if it's a Black woman, they will make even less. So I think, really focusing on pay equity. But I also, I support the Violence Against Women Act, which seeks to protect women from domestic violence and from stalking and from date violence. I think that's an important piece of legislation. I just think, I've seen research that shows that societies that are high performing, that are doing really well, in part, it's because the women are protected and supported and doing well, because, women are, if we're honest, they're what keeps everything together, what keeps, things going. So, I just believe that that's just the right thing to do, and for a variety of different reasons. And, and, and then just, reaching out and connecting and talking to women about their issues, letting them know that here, as someone who cares about their issues, things that they are concerned with. And like I said, we had a wonderful event a couple of months ago. Over 100 women came together supporting our campaign, and I think that's just the start for us.
Great. Jermaine.
Yeah, like everybody said, Brother Moore, thank you so much, man, for running for office, offering yourself out there. As you know, I am very experienced in running for office, having to take on a couple of incumbents myself, so I get it and understand what you're doing. I have a couple of questions for you. The first one is essentially about the campaign. I've been traveling this state, talking to voters, talking to individuals, trying to solve some problems along with an organization called Gangs of Peace. And I'll be down in Charleston probably in around August to do my events that I've been doing. But the people I've been talking to that have been coming to my events, I specifically add, they always say they need resources for their communities. But then I ask them a specific question. I say, all right, can y'all tell me who your representative is? Or can you tell me who your congressperson is? Or can you tell me who your senator is? And about 95% of them never have any idea who these people are. They know the popular people. So my question to you is, how are you going to make yourself popular inside these communities that are the most disengaged?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think there is no easy or simple solution. We just got to do the work. We've got to get out in front of people. We've got to, introduce ourselves, articulate what's in it for them. In the race, there is no easy answers. Like I said, I mean, we did this 50 events in 50 days, kind of a tour, and we're committed to being everywhere in the district and building out infrastructure throughout the district. We just have to get in front of people. We have to talk to the other people. I talked to a group of young people in Beaufort, particularly, young African Americans in Beaufort. They're having a hard time. I mean, gun violence is rampant, and there's not much to do. There's not much of a sense of hope. And, I just, again, just no quick and easy answers, but just try to create a relationship and try to articulate what we stand for, the fact that we're fighting for jobs. We're fighting for jobs with good benefits that, is going to allow people to be able to pay for, take care of their families. In fact, we spend a lot of time, talking about healthcare. Healthcare system is the number one cause of bankruptcy in this country. And we've got to modify that in ways that center the system around people and not profit. I talk about education. 90% of our children in this country go to public schools, but yet there's all these schemes to, skim money off the top for charter schools or to, there's all this stuff. I mean, to inject all this hyper partisan agenda, banning books and influencing the syllabus and all that. Like, we've got to deliver a consistently high performing education, and we've got to shield our classrooms from just the influence of all this hyper partisan stuff that's going on. We handicap our kids if we don't do those things, and so we've got to do it, and that's important. I even talk about the environment. Young people get the notion that they're going to be engaging with the environment longer than folks my age and older, and so, they care about our waterways. They care about, NOAA said that this hurricane season we're in now, there's an 85% probability that's going to be the most dangerous and violent hurricane season in history. Like, that's not just a random event. It's, sparked and it's because of, climate change, and we can do something about that. So there's all these issues. I even talk about gun violence. I mean, look, as a father, as a grandfather, the fact that in this country, the number one cause of death among American children is gun violence. I mean, that's just an extraordinary fact. I mean, it's unconscionable, the fact that we as a nation are prioritizing not just the NRA or not just the Second Amendment, but the NRA's interpretation of the Second Amendment, as opposed to doing things to protect our kids and our communities. Like, you just gotta, engage. So, long answer, but we just have to, connect with folks again. We've got young people out talking to other young people. We think that that's going to be helpful, but it's just putting in the work.
Yeah, my last question was just something a little bit more lighter. As you saw, myself and Representative Brandon Cox, we got a bill passed unanimously in the House and in the Senate to honor your great-great-grandfather with the very first statue putting on the State House grounds to honor a single African-American in the history of the state. How does that make you feel? How does that make your family feel? How involved do you all want to be in the the conception of designing and this whole process? I want to make sure that you all are involved every step of the way.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm deeply grateful for your leadership on this. I mean, I'm honored that look, I grew up for the vast majority of my life, nobody knew about Robert Smalls. And so the fact that now slowly but surely his name is coming out, and the work that you did to help make this happen, it's just amazing. And I will also say, like, there's probably not a lot of bills that are unanimously have unanimous bipartisan support, and so again, I think that's a testament to your leadership and hard work, and we'd love to, I'm pledged that happy to help in any way I can, whether it's with fundraising or whatever. I think it's a great honor, and would love to be a part of it in whatever way that makes sense. Thank you.
Let's make a trip to the State House for the unveiling, Jermaine. Just send us an invitation.
I got you.
Okay. All right. All right. Last question, then we'll let you go, Michael. And this is kind of a funny question, but I like asking people this. If somebody was under a rock for the last 10 years and they came out and they said, "Who is this Nancy Mace person?" What would you tell them? How would you describe who Nancy Mace is to someone who
I think Nancy
doesn't know?
is following the Donald Trump narcissist, self-absorbed, attend media I don't even want to use the word to describe it, but Nancy Mace is about Nancy Mace. I think she is singularly focused on advancing herself and her issues. I have asked, about a year ago, I started asking the question, who is the real Nancy Mace? Is it the one who, for example, critiques her party around women's reproductive freedom, or is it the one who voted for a 6-week co-sponsored a 6-week abortion ban? Is it the one who voted against infrastructure spending, or is it the one who showed up to take credit for that? Is it the one, there's all these kinds of issues that really call into question her integrity, and what she really stands for, what her moral compass is, and frankly, what she has done for the district. It seems to me that she is somebody who is either looking at her current role as representing the first congressional district as a stepping stone to some other kind of thing, whether it's some other political office, God forbid, or whether it is, a gig on Fox News, who knows? But it's really clear that she doesn't have any interest with the first congressional district at heart. And what I tell people is, look, my folks have been here since the early mid 1790s, and as I mentioned, I'll be fourth in the last 5 generations of people from South Carolina to serve. I am wanting to make sure that there is somebody in D.C. who wakes up in the morning thinking about the Low Country, who goes to bed thinking about the Low Country, and who folks has their back in D.C. And it is, I had an amazing career, an amazing life. I've done business on 4 continents. I've engaged with foreign heads of state. I've, served on the board of my local community's chamber of commerce. I, was named one of the 50 most influential people by Charleston Business Magazine. I got an honorary degree from Dickinson College. I've got City of Charleston named the day after me for my work with the museum. All those things, though, are stepping stones for the opportunity to represent, people in the first congressional district, and that would represent the highest and greatest aspiration of my life. So I'm deeply honored by this opportunity. We're going for it. We're going to articulate the distinctions, the contrasts, and I think this is a unique opportunity. I think Nancy Mace is very vulnerable. I think she, as I said before, she's sort of chasing Donald Trump's endorsement, got it, but she's, in so doing, really positioned herself outside the mainstream of the district. And we're out developing a really broad and deep coalition of Democrats, independents, and moderate Republicans, and we're going to get to see that.
Great. And by the way, the reason I asked that is because I think for the first time in her career, folks are finally able to agree on this kind of narrative about her. For the first few years, it was like, she's, is she a moderate? Is she a conservative? Some, people on both sides kind of thought both things. And in 2022, she was hated by Trump. Now she's got Trump's endorsement. I think you nailed it on the head. Everybody now realizes that she's just fake, right? She's just a phony, and she's going to say whatever she needs to get ahead, to get what she wants. And that has an expiration date for politicians. And I think we're all hoping that expiration date's this November. So we're all pulling for you. Good luck. Where can folks learn more about you? And more importantly, where can they sign up and donate?
Thank you so much for that question. Our website is simply my name, michaelbmoore.com, MichaelBmoore.com. Love to have folks who might be interested in joining our movement and volunteering in all variety of different ways, and of course, in helping support us with their generous donations. We're very grateful.
Awesome. Go sign up, go donate. Good luck in November. Please come back, and we'll talk to you soon, and we will be right back after a few messages. All right, welcome back. We just had a great interview with Michael B. Moore, who is the Democratic nominee for South Carolina's 1st Congressional District against Nancy Mace. We're moving on to the big news coming up next week, which is primary runoffs in South Carolina. We've got 4 pretty big ones that we're going to talk about. Emily, do you want to kind of walk us through it?
Absolutely, yes. So
Thank you.
runoff day is on the 25th. Same rules apply as primary election. Polls will be open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. At your typical locations. If there are any changes, your Board of Elections will communicate that online. So make sure you're checking up on scvotes.gov. There is early voting for the runoffs, which is something that maybe a lot of people aren't familiar with. Early voting started yesterday, Wednesday, running through tomorrow, Friday, 8:30 in the morning to 5 p.m. at your regular county-wide early voting centers. So if you voted early in the primary, it's going to be those same locations. People can go anywhere in their county as long as they have their photo ID with them. So there are 13 runoffs that are taking place across our state, but there are 4 that we really wanted to highlight here. The first being Senator Katrina Shealy facing her runoff against Carlisle Kennedy in Senate District 23. We spent some good time last week talking about it. Senator Shealy is the chairwoman of the Family and Veterans Affairs Services Committee in the Senate. She has done work to help ensure that kids in our state are getting fed if they qualify for free meals at school. She has helped work to reform our foster care system, among many, many other things. She is truly a family's first senator, and she is very consistent in that stance in her votes. Carlisle Kennedy is an extreme candidate. Both people that she faced in her primary were extreme. Now she's facing one of them in this runoff. So people who either already voted in the Republican primary in that district, or if you did not vote at all in the primary, can go cast a vote in that runoff. The only way that you cannot cast a vote in a runoff is if you are either not registered to vote or you voted in the Democratic primary and it's a Republican. So just to kind of level the playing field there about what who can and cannot vote in the runoff this week.
That's
and
good
next
because people either forget that or they don't know it. And
correct. I didn't even fully understand it. I had to call the election commission this week. So if I didn't understand it, I'm sure there are tons of others who didn't understand it. So yeah, if you did not vote at all, you can still vote in the runoff.
Yeah.
You can. Yes, very important.
And we don't register by party here. So if you didn't vote, you can vote in any primary. Hey, Melissa, let me ask you briefly about this race because I doubt this is going to be a show where we are doing a lot of promoting of Republicans. However, this is a race where a Democrat's not going to win this seat. And this is a race where if Katrina Shealy loses, not only does the Senate lose a female senator, but one of the sister senators goes down and someone who has been, let's just say fairly moderate on the issue of choice will be replaced by somebody who is for an all-out ban. It's a big deal, right?
It absolutely is. I mean, of course, my personal preference is always to have a Democratic woman in a seat. But Katrina Shealy, Senator Shealy, has come down on the right side of a lot of issues. She is definitely someone that is supportive of women's issues, children's issues, and family issues. And so she has been a strong voice on a lot of issues. I know one that I was recently working with was teen dating violence, for example. She has introduced legislation there. With the abortion fight that came in the Senate, she came down the right side of the issues there. And so she has really been a moderate voice and a voice that has been someone that's willing to work across the aisle to really address the women and family and children issues of South Carolina. And so my fear is the same fear I think that y'all have, is that with bringing someone in that's more right-leaning, one, we lose her powerful voice in the Senate, we lose another woman's voice, and we're getting someone who is going to be more extreme. And so what does that mean for the issues that we care about, the quality of life issues here in South Carolina, probably will not be addressed, or will not be addressed in a way that's going to benefit women and children of the state. And so I am overly concerned about losing this particular race to someone else.
Yeah, Jermaine, that's your turf sort of up there. What do you think about that race?
Yeah, and Senator Katrina Shealy, and with her permission, I call her Mama Shealy. She like Melissa has just stated, she has come down on the right side of history on a lot of these issues. And most of y'all probably didn't realize, but back in 2021, Senator Shealy and I, we penned an op-ed together. We did an op-ed together to call for a proviso to be repealed to allow school districts to be able to make up their own decisions as to what's best for the kids during the COVID pandemic. And we did this together. And a lot of people were like, man, what the heck is Jermaine Johnson doing with Katrina Shealy? He's got this young black guy with this older white lady who's a Republican, and we were able to, but that's just the point that we're trying to make here is that she wants to do what's right for people, and when you have somebody like that, you want to be able to make sure you keep that voice there because, the alternative, what we get, we're going to go further to the right. We're going to go further to a person who's going to turn a blind eye and fall on deaf ears when we need to talk about these children's issues. We need to have somebody like Katrina Shealy in there, so I'm all in for it.
Yeah, Jermaine, I don't know if you know this, but on her opponent's literature, they highlighted the work that she did with you. They actually called you a senator. So I did not know that your title had changed. But her opponent does know that she worked on that with you and is trying to use that against her. But I just want to like tie a bow and just like the bottom line is losing Katrina Shealy in the state Senate would be massive. Yeah. I don't say that as a Democrat. I don't say that as a woman. Just for the landscape of politics in South Carolina, if the chairwoman of the Family and Veterans Affairs cannot get out of her own primary in the year 2024, we have huge, huge issues. And I just want to make sure that is extremely clear to our listeners that the loss of Katrina Shealy would be catastrophic and a seismic wave taking over our state that I don't think we would be prepared to combat.
Yep. I think we can all agree on that. Okay, let's move on to the Senate 35 race. We've got runoffs on both sides of those. What do you think, Emily?
Yeah, that is our only runoff where we don't know the nominee from either party yet. So Senate 35 is currently held by Thomas McElveen, who announced that he would not be rerunning. So it kind of opened the gates, and this is a seat that I think Republicans are hoping they can try to pick off. Yeah. So this is one to watch moving forward in the runoff, and also as we head towards November. On the Democratic side, we have Jeffrey Graham, who is the former mayor of Camden. Against Austin Floyd, who is an educator and has a very public education prominent platform because of his experience. On the Republican side, we have Lindsay Augustini, who is a member of the Richland 2 school board. So also, again, education minded and focused, versus Mike Jones, who is a 36-year Army veteran. His platform really focuses around parental rights. And kind of that more conservative messaging and ideology that we have become so familiar with. So Lindsay Augustini could potentially be, a pickup of a woman, which we know Melissa wrote about this week about how we are just lacking abysmally in that department, and we've already lost a few of our women along the way in this primary. So certainly curious to see how that plays out. And between Jeffrey Graham and Austin Floyd, Graham is kind of seen as more of an insider, and Austin Floyd is kind of seen as more of a newcomer. But they have both been putting in the work. And curious to see what that outcome will be.
One just additional nugget that I saw yesterday is in that Agostini-Jones race. Agostini called voters' attention to the fact that Jones was arrested for criminal domestic violence 14, 15 years ago. And he is not the only Republican senator who is having to deal with criminal domestic violence history. Matt Lieber is another one in Charleston who has had CDV charges against him. So quite a pattern coming out of the GOP this year in terms of candidates. I can't say they've had a great track record nationally either over the past few years. Let's talk about another wild and crazy candidate on their side in a runoff. Old Pastor Mark Burns If you remember Mark Burns from 2016 and on, he was a Trump insider. He's an African-American pastor in the upstate, I think in Easley. He has run now, I think this is his third time running for Congress. He ran against William Timmons, or in William Timmons' district twice. Now he's running in another district. Jeff Duncan is not running again because of an extramarital affair scandal. It is just wild and crazy here in South Carolina with these Republicans. But that is a pretty nutso runoff too, with reporting coming out this week that he got $1 million loan and nobody really knows where it came from. So yeah. So I'm not sure we're going to get much better than Jeff Duncan in that seat either.
Yeah, it just feels like Mike Burns wanted to shop around and find a congressional race that he could win. And by Mike Burns shopping around, whoever gave him this loan maybe shopping him around. So
well, we know it wasn't Donald Trump. We just know it. He's not going to give money to anybody else, so we know it's not him. But it may be one of his allies. So, all right. So the runoffs are on Tuesday. A lot going on in South Carolina. The other thing, and this is the last thing we'll talk about before wrapping today. 1 week from today, I can't believe it. We're in the middle of June, and we're talking about a presidential debate, like a real general election debate. So I want to go around real quick because I think we might have a special episode next week, doing something with the debate. But I want to go around and ask two questions. Biden wins the debate if he does what? We'll start with Jermaine. What does Biden have to do to win the debate?
Well, first of all, I didn't think that this day was ever going to come. I didn't think they would ever get on the debate stage.
There's a week left for them to not.
Yeah. So, but Biden wins this debate and this election if he can appeal to the disengaged individual, the disengaged younger African American male, that I would say, because traveling around the state, I've talked to a lot of these young individuals who've been disengaged, and they're just like, dude, I'm voting for Trump because Trump gave me money. So, and so they're all tuned in to what that guy has said. So Biden is going to have to win those guys over, and he's going to have to do it with some specific messaging for those individuals. And if he can do that, I think he wins.
Okay. Melissa.
Yeah, I think there's this narrative that the president is weak and weak physically and mentally, unfortunately, and we know he's not. So I think as long as he doesn't have any missteps, misspeak, and just comes across as a strong candidate, that will re-engage some of the Democrats who are unsure of him continuing with the second term.
Emily.
I agree with Melissa. I think if he comes out strong, doesn't have any major faux pas in his speech or in his delivery, I think if he is able to kind of dispel the narrative that they are just two old white men, and that he is the lesser of two evils, because I think that's blasphemy to think that putting these two men side by side, they have more in common than they don't, because their track records speak for themselves. But I think if he gets up on stage and delivers that strong message, doesn't have any major missteps, and really sets himself apart and can prove that he can serve another 4 years in a strong capacity, I think it might make some folks who don't feel necessarily excited to say, all right, this is something that I'm willing to consider and spend some time and energy on.
Yeah, Emily, the last point you made is what I was going to say. I think he's got to make it about the next 4 years rather than the past, because, I don't like the polling that says that people think Trump's 4 years were more successful than Biden's 4 years. That really scares me. And that has a lot to do with just, people remember inflation and the lockdowns, and they forget about the context. But if we can talk about the vision, because Trump's vision is scary as hell, and he's going to be forced to talk about that vision. I want Biden to talk about the future. I want to talk about his vision and his administration's vision. But I also want Trump to talk about his, because that's not exactly a strength of his. So let's do the opposite. Trump wins this debate if, Emily, you start.
He seems remotely not crazy. Like, if he goes up there and actually puts forth like coherent thought and policy and makes himself appear quote unquote presidential, whatever that means to the person who watches or listens. When people have a debate, we tend to know that the people watching already have made up their minds for the most part. But I think that if he can control the media narrative coming out of this debate, that allows them to say, oh, Trump looked good and presidential on that stage tonight, I think that's a win for the Trump team.
Okay, so not throwing up on himself. Melissa, what's your opinion?
Yeah, I think Trumpers like to be scared. So I think that if actually he gets on stage and talks about this big scary future with Democrats and how he's the answer to all the ills in the world, that I think the Republican base will get excited for that and will feel like he won, because again, they're feeding off of that fear. He's feeding off of that fear. So if he can lean into that more, they'll think he won.
Okay. Jermaine?
If Trump comes out and he swings first, I think it's over. And what I mean by that is if Trump comes up there and gets Biden on his heels and has Biden defending his last 4 years instead of talking about the next 4 years, I think Trump is going to have to win on that one. So Biden's going to have to figure out how to counteract some of these attacks and just keep the topic on the next 4 years.
Yeah, I agree with all of you. And do you remember that first debate? I think it was with Chris Wallace, and there were just no guardrails. It was chaos, and they were talking over each other. The moderator couldn't get control over it. This time they're saying they're going to cut the mics. There's a lot more control. There's no audience. That's not good for Trump. He feeds off of an audience. He'll speak over people, but if you cut him off, my fear here, to Emily's point, is that can make him look kind of normal. Do you want Trump to show his chaotic side? And if you muzzle him, it's almost like when they decided to put a teleprompter in front of him. Like, he can read a teleprompter and look normal for 2 seconds, but the second he goes off the teleprompter, it's crazy old Don again. So, okay, well, it's a week from today. We'll probably have another episode before then to talk about that. In the meantime, we'll be back next Thursday to talk about the results of the runoff, talk about the debate moving forward, and everything else going on in South Carolina politics. Thanks for joining us on another episode of The Insiders. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next week.